Former U.S. Ambassador to Canada David Wilkins joins us now from Greenville, South Carolina. Good to have you with us again, sir.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
I want to hear what went through your mind when you heard that this was upheld. Is this, do you think, a turning point in American history?
Well, it could well be a turning point in this election cycle, because ObamaCare is now what this election is all about. Majority of the American people do not support it. They didn't support it when it was passed. They don't support it today. I think the last poll was 54% of the American people are opposed to it. And you really have already had one referendum on it. That was the 2010 elections, when the Democrats suffered the worst loss in Congress since the 1930s. The election in just a few months from now could well be a referendum on Obamacare. But one thing for sure, the Supreme Court confirmed what many of us feared, is that Obamacare is a gigantic tax on the American people. That was the basis for them upholding the mandate, which I think many experts thought that the mandate would be repealed. It was not, and it was upheld on the basis that that Congress has the right to tax.
The President himself had said, we played a clip earlier in the show, sir, that this was not going to be a tax when he first proposed this. In your mind, is Obamacare unconstitutional?
Well, the Supreme Court ruled it was not. So that's what we have to deal with. So now you go back to your elected representatives and ask them to repeal it. You've got one candidate who says he'll repeal it on day one. That's Governor Romney. We'll see how strong the president runs on this. He hasn't said much about Obamacare during the election cycle so far, leading up to the election. We'll see if this decision day makes him talk about it more, or encourages him to talk about it more. But certainly it's become a major issue now. The economy still is the predominant issue on the American people's minds, but Obamacare and the possibility of getting a Republican in there that would repeal it, becomes very, very important all of a sudden.
Absolutely. I mean, your bank account and your health, two most important things, many would say, in their everyday lives. What approach, though, do you think Republicans now take as we get closer to the election, as we approach November? How do they use this?
Well, it's a huge tax on the American people. It increases the deficit. It's a $500 billion tax. Overall, it puts government really between you and your doctor. And there are a lot of mandates that the American people aren't even aware of. I'm pretty sure Congress wasn't aware of it when they passed it. But I think it becomes a major issue now. If you're for Obamacare, you support the president. If you think Obamacare is a huge tax, will prevent you from making good choices on your own medical care and health, then I think you might be inclined to support Mr. Romney, and I think that's going to be what he's going to be pushing in the next couple of months.
About that individual mandate, which was so curious from the beginning and so questionable that it was upheld, many say that if you can force somebody to pay for insurance, you can force them to go to the grocery store and pick up a broccoli or a celery. What do you make of that?
Well, that was the point Justice Scalia made during the oral arguments, is people have to receive medical care from time to time. People have to eat. And so could Congress pass a law that requires when you go grocery shopping, you are mandated to buy broccoli or whatever it is, because it's healthy. And obviously everyone who hears that argument thinks that's a ridiculous argument. And that's why many people thought the mandate would be overturned, and perhaps the rest of the bill might stay intact. But the mandate, I think, was the one that everybody thought, or most people thought, would be overturned. It was not, and it was not overturned on a reason different than what most people considered the court would say, and that is Congress has the right to tax. Obamacare is a tax.
Democrats say this is a political victory for the president. Your take?
Well, he supported Obamacare. He proposed it. He pushed, strong-armed it through Congress, a very nonpartisan vote with the Democrats lining up for it, Republicans voting against it. The old saying, be careful what you wish for, he got it. And now he's got to defend it during the next 4 months of this election campaign.
Chief Justice John Roberts, we mentioned, was the swing vote in today's ruling. Were you surprised by his decision?
I thought he would. go with the other conservatives on the court, but obviously he didn't, and we have to deal with it. So the only way to deal with it now is go back to your elected representative and say, we want it repealed. And the way you do that is vote for people that have staked out a position that they would be in favor of repealing it, and they'd work to do that.
You mentioned earlier that, you know, the Supreme Court has ruled this is constitutional. We need to just now deal with this. But we heard from Michelle Bachmann, who said there is no basis in the Constitution for the government to have this kind of power. Do you agree?
Well, I'm very surprised by the ruling, yes. I did not think the mandate would be upheld. I think this is overreaching by the federal government. The government now will control a fifth of our economy, because that's what health care it makes up in our overall economy, and it's a scary thought. And you know, to me, it's moving toward more and more toward socialization, and more toward a European way of doing things, and that's not what the American free enterprise system is built on. And so I am surprised by the decision, and I think, quite frankly, I'm very disappointed in it, and I'm hopeful that enough Republicans will get elected this fall, that Mr. Romney will get elected this fall, and Obamacare will have a very short life.
Mr. Wilkins, rather than helping Americans in terms of their health, is this going to end up just hurting them in their pocketbook?
Well, it absolutely does that. I mean, the Republican Party has I think, responsibility to come up with a plan, too. You can't just say, I'm against Obamacare. You got to say, we need tort reform, or we need this, or we need that. You got to have a plan on the table. But for the federal government to take over basically health care, and to tell you what doctors you can go to and limit your access and mandate health insurance, that's not the principle that the United States was built on. And I think that is going to scare a lot of people. And again, when it first passed in 2010, 58% of Americans say they were against it. A poll just released by Rasmussen, very well-respected pollster, 2 weeks ago indicated 58% of American people oppose Obamacare. And so that hadn't changed. Americans don't want it.
Mitt Romney says that repealing it would be top priority for him. Do you agree that this is the best first decision for him to make if he were elected president?
Absolutely. And that's why I think Obamacare all of a sudden becomes a major issue in the campaign. This election really is all about the economy, the deficit, and now Obamacare.
All right, former U.S. Ambassador to Canada, David Wilkins, joining us from South Carolina. Thanks, Mr. Wilkins. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.